Hello and welcome to Filmmakers Focus. I'm Doc Kennedy. This week's special guest is Ralph Smith on the topic of becoming a working actor. We're going to get to our interview in just a second. Just wanted to give you a quick update about what's going on here. I've been toying with some ideas of how to make the podcast a little bit more doable with my time. I've been working on this for a little while now. I think what we're going to try for a little bit here, I'm going to do a interview every other week, and then I'll do like a short, which I've been doing lately, some shorter podcast episodes where we'll be talking about some different stuff. And in those episodes, I'll include what's going on in my world, which includes, I just started shooting a documentary this last weekend, and I'll keep you up to date on what's going on there. I love sharing what's going on because I think it's important for us to be able to bounce ideas. I feel like I'm not even close to being the smartest, when it comes to doing whatever project. I love having feedback. I love hearing different ideas. And I think the more ideas, the better, because we can sift through those and find what works best. I never think that I have the best idea. I always want to hear what other people have to say as well. So I'm going to be looking at doing that. We'd have a standard intro on the interview podcasts, and then on the other ones, we'll talk about a different, whatever topic that week. But those would include what's going on around here, because I have heard feedback, from plenty that do enjoy those. So I appreciate that. Let me know your thoughts on this too. If this is the format that you want to keep going with me sharing what's going on and then the interview or whatever, always something going on. So just let me know what you think's best. But we'll just give this a shot for a little while and see what happens. If you like it, great. And if not, we'll go back to what we had. This is just another effort for me to clear up a little bit more time and make sure that we can get an episode out each week. So, yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add to that. So, yeah, if you want to follow us on Twitter, head on over to Filmmakers Focus there. Actually, you can just go to filmmakersfocus.com, click on the link that says follow here, and you'll see all the links. And that's a great way to follow on every platform that I'm on. So, well, let's just go ahead and dive into our conversation here with Ralph Smith.
And now our feature presentation.
Welcome to the show, Ralph.
Hey, thanks for having me, Doc.
Yesterday, Ralph and I met up in person, and we were having this awesome conversation when it comes to being an actor and what actors need to do, especially in the get-go. First off, you started acting a little bit later in life, didn't you?
Yeah, I was in my late 30s when I started pursuing this, as a more serious thing. I actually gave it a try in my teenage years. I was blessed and fortunate enough to be an extra on the Disney film Newsies after I graduated from high school. And then after that, I got away from the industry. And then in 2010, my youngest daughter, who was around 13 at the time, she was about 13. She wanted to get involved in acting. And, I figured, okay, well, I'll try to help her out. And I found an audition for her for a zombie movie. I was living in Idaho at the time. Took her to the audition. And long story short, I ended up getting asked to audition while I was sitting there in the waiting room with her. And I got a role in this film, and my daughter was chosen to be an extra. And so for me, it was initially, something that I could do with her. It was a daddy-daughter time kind of thing, and it was just really enjoyable to me, and I enjoyed spending that time with her and being creative with her like that. After that, she and I did a few other projects together, and it started to really, really catch me, that acting bug that everybody talks about. And I just kept going from there. I kept doing student films and indie films, and eventually was able to get into some more mainstream things. So yeah, I was late 30s, close to 40 when I got started.
So when you decided, hey, I want to pursue this full time, what was your first move?
My first move was to do as much research as I could online um, in what tools I would need. For instance, I knew the basics about headshots in a resume, but I didn't really know what specifically the headshots should look like. Things like that. I didn't really have too much of a clue about a reel because, like I said, my previous experience in the industry had been when I was a teenager, and reels at that time really weren't a thing.
Yeah.
Um, Headshots were mostly black and white. They were real close in. Um, there were certain specifics about how they had to be cut and the way they were supposed to show your face, and all of that had changed so much that I really had to go online and do a lot of research. So that was my first step.
So as you've progressed your career, what have you seen that you really enjoy about the industry? What are some things that you take away and you're like, maybe not so much, but what keeps you in the game?
I'll be honest. Everybody who goes into the industry, you're going to have your low points. Um, Everybody thinks it's always, all fun and excitement and everything, but it really isn't. I mean, it's a day-to-day job. It really is. And as far as my high points, I really like how the industry is going towards diversity. I mean, I'm a white middle-aged guy, and that seems to be what the industry was mostly populated with for such a long time. And I like now that the industry, particularly mainstream industry, is moving more towards trying to get diversity in their cast. They're not giving all of the roles away to people like me, and I like that because that's more of what America is. America is diverse, and you need to show the reality of who lives here. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
As far as what I've seen that I don't like, not to be negative, but there does seem to be a cliquish nature to the industry, particularly in the indie film markets. That's been my own personal experience. A lot of times it's not really spoken out loud, but you can definitely tell. For instance, if you walk into an acting class, who knows each other, who kind of the outsiders are, and you tend to see the same groups of people working together and not really letting anybody new kind of come in. So in that regard, it's kind of cliquish. For me, when I hit those low points, because it does kind of hurt sometimes. When you work your butt off and you're putting your full effort into it and you just can't seem to break through that wall. I have a faith in God, and that and being able to talk with my wife, who happens to be my best friend, really gets me through those low points and really provides a lot of encouragement to keep going. Plus the fact that I like being creative. I like taking a script and looking at a character and bringing elements of my own personality to it and just putting that across on camera and letting people essentially see a part of who I am at my core. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something interesting with you, Ralph, that I just love. So you and I both live near Seattle, kind of within that range. And you recently took a trip to LA to really try to, take your career up a notch. Can you share with us the why in that and what exactly transpired through that?
Sure. The whole trip to LA was, I joined SAG-AFTRA, which is the Actors Union, in June of 2015. And unfortunately, in the Pacific Northwest, there is not a whole lot of opportunity for a SAG-AFTRA actor to do any mainstream work. Most of the SAG-AFTRA work that is up here is mostly training videos for like Microsoft and Amazon, companies like that. And that's not bad, but it's not what I was looking for. So with the encouragement of my wife, I decided that I needed to go to a major market, either LA or New York City, to really explore whether or not I had what it takes. I came up with a game plan. I set out some very specific goals for myself for the trip. I gave myself a 6 week time frame and said, what I need to do in that 6 weeks is find an agent or a manager or both if I'm lucky enough, because that's actually kind of a rarity to have both. But to get one or the other or both in that time frame, and maybe go on a couple of auditions, maybe take a class or two, and I would consider, if I was able to get through all of that, that would be a successful trip. Mm-hmm. If anything else came beyond that, it was like, hey, that's just gravy on top. So I saved up money for probably about 6 or 7 months, and off I went. And luckily I have family that's down there, so I didn't have to pay for a place to stay, which was a huge deal. Mm-hmm. I just had to pay for my own gas, my own food, any other acting related expenses I was going to incur. So I drove down there at the end of August, and within the first 2 weeks that I was there, I was able to sign with a manager, and she actually got me a meeting with an agency down there that I had heard of before, but I hadn't really done a whole lot of research on. And so my manager and I, who is just awesome, she's Joanne Smolin with After Eden Management in Santa Clarita. We met. I signed with her. We liked each other. It was a very comfortable fit. Then we went and we met with Rage Talent, this lady named Robin Minetti, and we got along great. And she actually offered to sign me right there at the end of our meeting. And she's like, you don't have to sign right now. You can take a couple days to think about it. And I felt in my gut that it would probably be in my best interest to sign with her right then. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any kind of, gut feeling that something was amiss or that she was trying to pull one over on me, which I've had in the past.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I got the agent, I got the manager, and that was within the first 2 weeks. And so I'm thinking, great, I'm cruising along. Then within a week after that, I was signed up for a class. It was a comedy acting triage class, is what it was officially called. And the lady who was conducting it was she was one of the comedy coaches for one of the actors on Friends. And so I figured, okay, this is a good opportunity to take a class with somebody who knows what the heck they're doing. Mm-hmm. So I went and I did the class, and then within another week after that, my manager got me an audition with the casting director for Pretty Little Liars, and he was also doing some casting for a Sci-Fi Channel show. So he was doing an all-in-one casting for multiple shows, and I had the opportunity to go and get in front of this guy and do an audition for him. And I didn't get a role, but just the fact that I had another one of those things that I could check off of my list that I'd set out for myself before I went was just, I hit all of the accomplishments that I'd set out for myself within a 4-week time period. Mm-hmm. And it was just, it amazed me. And so in my mind, once I hit all of those goals, I was thinking, okay, I'm doing it. I can't be down here forever, because I have a life up in the Pacific Northwest that I've got to get back to. But it definitely left it in my mind that I can split my time between both places. Yeah. And with an open invite from my family to stay with them at any time, all I got to do is, when I get some more auditions lined up, cruise on down there and stay as long as I need to do auditions and callbacks and any potential gigs I may get.
That's great. So what I love about this, Ralph, and we have a lot of listeners that live outside of LA, and we, they hear about pilot season and we talked about this yesterday where, people miss out. One thing that we talked about yesterday was how important it is to get to LA when you go, that you're already with the union. If you're an actor, right, that you're already with SAG-AFTRA. Otherwise, right, you said, as you said, the likelihood of you even getting a meeting is next to none.
Right, especially during pilot season. Here's the thing, and I'll just repeat it what we had talked about yesterday. You have a lot of people who, for one reason or another, either because they have the acting bug or because, in their hometown they are like the it guy or the it girl as far as acting, or they were the number one person to always go to for indie film or plays or whatever the case may be in their town. So they think that, well, I've got the skills to make it. Well, yeah, having the skills is great, and it's one of the elements you need, but more importantly, the vast majority of casting directors, the vast majority of agents and managers that operate within the mainstream industry in a larger market like LA most often will not even talk to you unless you're at least SAG-AFTRA eligible or you're already in the union. And a lot of people don't realize that. These people that come from these smaller places and these around the country and around the world that think, oh, I'm going to go to Hollywood and I'm going to make it big. What I mentioned earlier about it being a big pond, it's more like an ocean. And pretty much everybody that operates in Hollywood is a shark. And unless you're ready to get major bites taken out of you, don't go swim with the sharks. That's the best advice I can give you. And so in that vein, the way to get ready to swim with those sharks is build up your resume. Research how your headshots are supposed to be, because how your headshots may look in your smaller market may not be what they're looking for in the LA market. There's a very specific way they want headshots to look there. And you need to look that up. You need to research that and know what that is. And you need to have those headshots ready to go. You need to have a good reel. You need to be ready to face 99.99% rejection for the opportunity to get that 0.01% acceptance in an audition and move on from there, because that's what it is. Pilot season down in California, unless you're already a part of SAG-AFTRA and you already have representation in Southern California, don't even bother going. In all seriousness, these casting directors are literally getting bombarded with hundreds and thousands of submissions from agencies with union actors that they represent for all of these pilots and all of these shows. And casting directors, they don't even want to see anybody that hasn't been already submitted by an agency or a manager from the LA market. And they don't want to look at somebody who is not a union actor because it's not worth their time. In the slower seasons, even, a lot of times they won't even mess with that. Now, keep in mind, there is an indie film market in Southern California, just like there is anywhere else. And if you are so dead set on dropping your life wherever you're at and going to California, your best bet is to go down there and try however you can to get involved in the indie film market there, because there is some crossover between the mainstream industry and the indie industry down there. So if you go and you get involved in indie film there, some of those people do work on more mainstream productions, or they have those connections, and that could be the thing that gets your foot in the door. But you've got to go down there and you've got to get involved in it fully 100% and, get your face and your name known in the indie market so that it starts generating some talk and some interest, possibly. That's not a guarantee, but possibly, in the more mainstream circles.
Well, and I think the most important thing that you did on this trip was you had a game plan established.
Yes.
You knew exactly what you needed to get done. You made sure that you got it done, plus some.
Yes, you for sure need that game plan. If you go into it just willy nilly, you're going to get eaten up. And
Well,
you're
and
going to
I
get
think
spit
that's
out.
how a lot of people do it. You just go, like bright lights, here I come, and it's just not
Well, and that's
realistic.
and that's the sad thing because you see so many people get taken advantage of there, and I've seen this personally, and I've darn near experienced it myself. Um, it's very easy for people with stars in their eyes who show up there from wherever they come from in the world. It's very easy for them to get picked out of a crowd
Hmm.
because I can't even explain it. It's something. I don't know if it's a vibe they give off or just a look they have on their face, but you can tell who the people are that are kind of newbies, and those are the ones that they get taken advantage of so easily and so quickly, and that's why you hear all these stories about young women getting sold off into like sex trafficking and people that go there and they get taken advantage of by these people and they end up losing all of their money and they end up destitute and end up having to do things that they normally wouldn't have thought they would ever do. And it's because if you show up there and you do not have a game plan and you do not already have those tools, like I was saying earlier with the reel, the headshot, the resume, the onset experience, and in most cases already being either eligible for the union or in the union, you're gonna be one of those people that gets chewed up and spit out. It's a sad part of the industry, but that's what it is.
Well, that's just the reality of it, and I think people are a lot more in tune with it now than they were in the past. But it's good to be
Oh, I agree.
reminded.
Oh, I agree because it's definitely talked about a lot more now than it was in the past. Because I'll tell you, when I first was involved in Hollywood, when I was a teenager, it was something that was never spoken about.
Hmm.
Um, you heard kind of out of the side of your mouth whispers about casting couches and things like that because sadly that was part of the industry at that time. And I don't know how widespread it was because I never experienced that. Um, but it was there. But now it is a lot more out in the open. People do talk about it more, but you still have to be careful. Particularly with people there who are frauds, but they are very, very good at putting up the facade of, well, they have connections or they know people or they've done such and such projects or, and you hear it all over the place there. You have to be very careful and do your research and have those tools and have that game plan and the mindset going into it. You have to be ready. Point blank. You have to be on top of your game. And just because you are the it person in whatever little market you're in currently does not mean that you will go to LA and make it because 99.9% of everybody that goes down there fails.
So this question, we didn't talk about this yesterday, but I'm intrigued. If you had it to do again, Ralph, you've been acting now for a while. If you had it to do again, what would you do different?
It's been a learning experience for sure. When I first started with my daughter back in 2010, I will admit I was pretty naive to a lot of the games, so to speak, of how people take advantage of other people. I thought I had a lot of life experience, and I didn't think I was dumb or, I don't know, easy to take advantage of, I guess you could say. But I'll be honest, I was taken advantage of quite a few times by phony agencies and phony managers and phony casting directors. And I was taken advantage of financially. I was taken advantage of, with my hopes and my dreams. And I fell into those traps. So if there was one thing I could do differently, I would definitely have fewer stars in my eyes. And that's one reason why I keep bringing that up in our conversation here. Don't go into it with those big stars in your eyes to the point to where you're blinded. And it's very easy to do that. I mean, I did that for probably a period of about a year there. And every time I turned around, I mean, I was getting stomped on in one way or another. Like I said, either emotionally or financially. So I would definitely slow it down. I would definitely think about what I was doing a little bit more, rather than just rushing headlong into it. To be honest, the fact that I decided to become an actor cost me my first marriage. My first wife wasn't supportive of it, and I mean, in hindsight, I guess it's not a bad thing because, you know, I was able to find my wife that I'm married to now, and she's just the most wonderful human being I've ever met. So, I mean, you know, there's some good and bad with it, but like I said, I would have slowed it down. I would have not gone into it with just such big starry eyes, and I would have gone with my gut a lot more. That's an important tip for all you people who want to be actors, is go with your gut always. If it doesn't feel right, or you know, you think it's too good to be true, go with your gut, because it's probably not right, and it probably is too good to be true.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it's funny when you think about stars in your eyes, you kind of think about that person that, like, even for myself, you know, I was like that when I was a teenager, when I was early 20s, you know, but it happens even when you're older, you know, and you started acting later in life, and it still happens.
Absolutely.
So this
Absolutely.
could apply to anyone.
Well, you know, and it's not a stretch for somebody who's creative.
Yeah, for sure.
And gets excited about being an actor. Because, I mean, you know, in the end, if it wasn't fun, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
You know, so it's not much of a stretch for somebody who's creative, who finds that enjoyment in that joy in being an actor. It's not difficult for them to get those stars in their eyes.
Sure.
You know, and like what we were talking about yesterday, you know, you were asking me for just kind of some advice on you know, how to get started in, you know, kind of furthering your career as an actor. I will say it again and again and again and again to anybody who will listen. Just slow it down. Don't get the stars in your eyes, because you will be an easy target for the sharks that are swimming in the bigger ponds to pick you off. And they know who the newbies are.
Yeah.
They pick them out of a crowd.
Yeah, and I think that's just a lack of knowing what to do. So,
Right.
Again, that goes back to the game plan, setting that up,
Exactly.
knowing where you need to go, what you need to do, what needs to be accomplished, and where you don't need to go is everything that's not in the game plan.
Exactly. I would agree 100% with that.
Well, so Ralph, looking forward, what would Ralph Smith a year from now be looking at?
My goal, and this was actually something that, it was a piece of advice that a friend of mine, when I was a teenager, who was involved in the industry, he was, I won't mention his name, but he was very involved in the industry. He had a major film out around that time. And it was a piece of advice that he gave me, and I carry it with me to this day. Sit down and seriously think about where you want to be 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and write it down on a piece of paper. Because when you write something down on a piece of paper and you keep it somewhere where you can go back and constantly reference it, it is holding you accountable to yourself. So I actually did this at the start of my career back in 2010. I'm a little short of where I thought I was going to be at the 5-year mark, because at the 5-year mark, I really expected to be in California full time, and possibly be, if not a series regular on a show, at least somebody who had done some, you know, one episode parts on maybe a couple of shows, and I haven't done that yet. But when I look at what I have accomplished a lot. Uh, Now, a year from now, that is where my goal is to be more in California, because I've already established those connections down there. I've already got the representation team down there. My name and my face is getting around down there. Um, so my goal for a year from now, and I actually wrote this down the other day, was to be down there more and at least have a couple of appearances on 2 or 3 shows, even if they were only one episode characters.
Mm-hmm.
5 years from now, I would like to have at least a major supporting role in a feature film that gets seen in theaters, at least nationwide. You know, one of those types of films. Um, or the way it kind of seems to be going, people are kind of moving away from theater and moving more towards online, like Yahoo and or Netflix and Amazon, those types of platforms. um, a feature film that'll be direct to video on one of those platforms. That's my 5 year goal. I don't have a new 10-year goal yet, because my 10-year goal that I set out when I first started is now 4 years away, and I kind of had to revise it. So that's looking forward. That's where I want to be within 5 years, within 10 years. And so I'm going to do what I need to do to game plan those things, and how do I go about getting myself to that point between now and then.
Yeah, I'm interested in goal setting. So, do you feel like when you started, you'd written down your goals and you didn't accomplish everything that you wanted to this point, but you did accomplish a lot of it? Do you feel like had you not written them down, you might be a little bit more like a leaf in the wind right now?
Absolutely. Very, very much so. Because and like I said, when you write things down, it makes you accountable to yourself. Um, if you write something down and you show it to somebody else, it makes you even more accountable, because now this other person has seen what you've put, as a goal. And if they're a close family member or a close friend, and they're going to constantly ask you about it. So where are you at with that kind of thing? I very much had I not written it down, had I not sat down and given it some thought, I definitely would not have accomplished as much as I have, and I would be a little bit more uncertain as to what my future in the industry would be.
Mm-hmm. I'm like that too. I'm the type of guy that I really like to make them public because I like to back myself into a corner, and I just work better that way. I like letting people know where I want to be, because I'm not going to try to weasel out of it. There's times that I do, and there's times that it's justified. But most of the time, it's a choice of, do I really want to pursue what I had written down, or do I not? Or do I want to pursue what I said I was going to do, or do I not? And I just don't have that in me where I love to say, hey, I was wrong. That dream was wrong. No, the dream wasn't wrong. I just decided I didn't want it bad enough.
Well, and you bring up a very good point there. By their nature, creative people can be kind of flaky. Mm-hmm. And it's just a part of who we are. But if you want it bad enough, you will do whatever uncomfortable things within yourself, including stepping outside of, and actually, let me rephrase that. You'll step outside of your comfort zone of being able to just walk away from something easily and walk towards that part of where you're going to hold yourself accountable. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean by that, by being uncomfortable or walking out of your comfort zone. Because most creatives, they don't like to be backed into a corner. They don't like to be accountable to anybody outside of themselves, maybe. Whereas if they step outside of that comfort zone and they make themselves accountable to somebody else, or make that list and hold to it and force themselves to hold to it, that's stepping outside their comfort zone, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yep, I agree 100%. Well, Ralph, this has been awesome, and I know we could go on and on here. We're going to have you back on, and we're going to talk about this some more.
Cool. I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you.
You bet. So where can people get in touch with you, Ralph?
Right now, you can find me on IMDb under Ralph Smith. I'm also on Facebook. I have an actor page, and I pretty much accept everybody as Facebook friends, and Twitter. On Twitter, I'm at Ralph Smith 1973, and on Facebook, you can just look for Ralph Smith Idaho. That was my actor page that I set up back when I first started. I kind of need to change that name now. But like I said, you can also find me on IMDb, and that's my representation. Contact information is on there, and if you want to contact me through there, they know how to get in touch with me.
Awesome. And we'll have links to that in the show notes, and we'll just say goodbye, Ralph, but thank you again.
Awesome, Doc. Thank you. You have a good one.
Thanks again to Ralph Smith for coming on the show, sharing his insight. I love what he had to say. Lots of great stuff there. One thing that really stands out to me, no matter how old you are, you're never too old to chase a dream. And I love that. I love that it really is up to us. And there's a lot of actors that if you look, I think about the lady that was in Nebraska, June Webb, is that it? I'm going to look it up here. Nebraska, let's see here. June Squibb. Yes, June Squibb. She really didn't hit the scenes big time until a little bit later in life, So whatever age you are, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that you put the effort in and you just decide, if you want to, that you're going to go for it, whatever it may be. It may be in the filmmaking industry, maybe it's not. But I highly encourage you that, if you want something bad enough, it's just got to be on you. It doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter what anything. It doesn't matter. It's all on you. So just make sure you're putting in the effort. Get out there and make it happen. So we will talk to you later. I look forward to seeing you down the road. It's always an honor for me to host this podcast, and I appreciate you coming along for the ride. So God bless. Go and grow.
We don't negotiate with terrorists.
Whoa. Hey, are you insane?